Also, feel free to spread out. We're going to be here for an hour, so with many of the day students not here, you can feel free to move seats and spread out a little bit if you feel more comfortable being further away from me. Good morning. Welcome to our students, employees, and others joining us online. I also want to thank and welcome our guests, Faizal Khan, class of 1987, and Tyrone Black, who will be joining us later, who have braved the first big snowstorm of the winter to be here with us today. I had the pleasure of meeting Faisal this summer when I visited North Carolina, and I think you're going to really enjoy hearing from him. Mr. Smith will give you an introduction shortly. I also want to thank all the students and faculty who have organized, prepared, and will facilitate today's workshop. Today, we're taking a pause from our traditional academic work to celebrate and honor the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Dr. King was a civil rights activist who came to prominence in the mid-1950s and was a leader who championed nonviolence and civil disobedience to make change. While many of you may have heard of King's most famous speech, the I Have a Dream speech given at the March on Washington in 1963, you may not know that King also spoke in Biddeford, Maine, at a gathering of civil rights activists in 1964. His talk then was titled, "The Negro and the Quest for Identity." He spoke about how we must get rid of the idea of superior and inferior races using nonviolence. King was assassinated in April of 1968, and today, the third Monday of January, is a federal holiday in his honor. This holiday was first observed in 1986. Why are we here today? Today, and the list goes on. Just this weekend in Texas, a rabbi and 3 members of his Jewish community were held hostage for over 11 hours before federal agents could free the hostages. This sent fear throughout the Jewish community across the states and I'm sure around the world. For some of us, it elicited feelings of anger and sadness. We have work to do. Today, we're here to learn. We're here to lean in. We're here to learn. Around this country, adults are trying to tell us that this learning is too hard for young people. I disagree. I think it is essential for your generation to understand all of our complex history and where we are today. I'm confident that you will all engage in challenging material, to listen, to learn, to make our community stronger by understanding the world we come from and the world we live in. Being part of a community means building a community where everyone feels and believes they belong. And that is our commitment. And today is one step in that direction. Thank you. I'd now have Mr. Smith come up, please.
Hey everybody. So I have the pleasure of introducing our keynote speaker for the day, Mr. Faizal Khan. Faisal is a published columnist and has been an assistant editor and regional editor for 2 international newspapers in the Caucasus region. At times he worked with the U.S. Embassy press secretary on various assignments related to political, economic, and social issues in the Azerbaijan. Furthermore, Faisal has acquired a great deal of experience working with the UN and NGOs on matters related to healthcare and social programs for women and orphans. He has a strong multicultural background in which he provides a leadership role in the areas of activism and community organizing. He's been a member of the board of directors for the Coalition for Peace with Justice, which is an organization dedicated to a just and sustainable peace between Israel and Palestine. Faizal Khan is also a board member for ACLU. Faisal is the recipient of the CAIR, the Council on American Islamic Relations, 2007 Courage Award in recognition of his work defending the rights of the vulnerable and afflicted members of society. Most notably, Faisal is the founder of the Carolina Peace Center. CPC is a grassroots nonprofit organization based in North Carolina, working to marginalize communities in the region. His focus is in structured institutionalized racism, Islamophobia, immigrants and refugees, and women's rights. Through his work as a community organizer, Faisal has organized many events such as town hall meetings, small and large peaceful rallies and protests, press conferences including vigils, and has cultivated community engagement regarding political and social issues. Additionally, he has organized refugee events with interfaith groups to garner support for incoming refugee families and increase cultural awareness. Faisal has always been focused on the safety and security of refugees immigrating to the US, particularly children. He's also designed and directed special interfaith programs and leadership development programs for the youth to create awareness about diverse faiths, non-religious groups, diversity, genders, and sexual orientation, and encourages. Faisal's an alumni of Kents Hill School, as a member of the graduating class of 1987, where some of his fondest memories took place on the Brook Boulay football field and in this very room when it used to house the Kents Hill basketball court and gymnasium. Without further delay, I welcome Mr. Faizal Khan.
Good morning. I would like to ask all the students to get up and come to the stage for a few minutes, if you can please. Only the students. Thank you. And you can stand on the floor too if there's not enough space. Thank you. I'd like to ask all the faculty and staff to please stand up. Thank you. I'd like to take a knee and ask everybody else to stand up and take the knee, honoring all the black men, women, and children from the time of slavery to current, who have been subjugated, marginalized, harassed, brutally marginalized, to honor their legacy. And as we take the knee, we remember them in our hearts, in our minds, and we also pledge to ourselves that we will rise and stand up and speak out for all our marginalized communities, and we will not remain silent. So at this minute, I would like to ask everybody to take a knee for a moment, please. Thank you. Thank you very much. You can stand up. So, looks like the map went away. Why did I ask all of you to come to the stage? As you can see, the map was there. I think it just went away. Mr. Bryan is going to put it back on. You were sitting, waiting for me to come on the stage and talk. But I want you to just picture this in your mind, that the stage is the map of the United States. Think of this as entire continental US, including Hawaii, Alaska. And while you're waiting for me to come, think of it when you look at all the issues pressing our country right now. I'm sure you read them in the news and social media, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok. I don't use TikTok, but I know you all have TikTok. And the point I'm trying to make here is that if you're going to sit and wait for somebody to change it, it's not going to happen. It's never going to happen. If you're waiting for somebody to stand up and speak out for marginalized or at-risk communities, it's not going to happen. If you're waiting for a leader to rise because he or she can take the lead, that may happen, but it's not going to have a significant impact unless you stand up and you make that conscientious decision that I'm going to do something about it. Until you show up, whether it's rallies, whether they're peaceful protest, whether calling, emailing, or visiting your elected officials, whether it's in your classroom, something that is not comfortable, something that's not being addressed, something that makes you really uncomfortable and you need to speak out. Nothing's going to change. Because half of the work, when it comes to social activism, political activism, advocacy, civic, about 5 minutes ago, there was nobody standing here. And look around you now. You have filled this whole place. And when you look at each other, I want you to take a moment, look at each other, and realize something in a snapshot, that this is a new America. This is what America is all about. People of different backgrounds, different faiths, different non-religious communities, genders, sexual orientation, races, ethnicities, and colors, languages. This is what America's about. America's not a melting pot. I don't agree with that. Because when you melt something, what happens? It just melts away. I like to put it how Jimmy Carter said once. We are a beautiful mosaic of different dreams, hopes, and aspirations. And we need to embrace that mosaic. And that very mosaic is under threat now in this country. We are more polarized than ever before. Our democratic values, our institutions, everything that you see over there and more is under threat. But as dark as it looks, depressing as it seems, more powerful than human spirit. You have to believe that you can make a difference. And I promise you, if you believe in your abilities, if you believe in your work, it's based on peace, justice, equality, unity, you will succeed. You may fail a few times, but then you need to keep trying. And if you look behind you in the screen, there are a number of issues this country is facing. And option of being silent is not good enough anymore. Because I believe your generation is resilient and amazing. You're more diverse than ever before, more active, more knowledgeable, more exposed. You got something that I didn't have when I was going to cancel this. If you use this wisely, you can make a huge impact. to your advantage. And last, before you can go back to your seats, we cannot fix anything in this country, whether it's healthcare, whether it's anything else, until we address the issue of racism. This country's foundations were built on racial injustice, on indigenous and black communities. Until we don't acknowledge it, until we don't come to terms with it, we can't move forward. Thank you for coming. Please go back to your seat. Thank you so much.
Respected head of school, teachers, staff, advisors, esteemed parents, and fellow students, good morning. It's an honor to be here, really, for me, coming back to the school after 35 years. As Mr. Smith mentioned, I used to play basketball here. And actually there was one net here and the other one was on the other side. So a lot has changed. I have changed. One thing for sure hasn't changed is the winter here in Maine. So if you're expecting someone to stand up and change the things you are not happy about, then I have news for you. The change that you're expecting to take place will not happen until you show up and speak out in the space you're in. Change will not occur until you make the conscientious decision that I'm going to do something about it. We can't alleviate the suffering and hardship of humanity unless we all come together and take action. I'd like to share a story about a historian and a scholar. Amazing man. His name was John Hope Franklin, born in Oklahoma. He helped create the field of African American history. His work lasted for nearly 6 decades. In 1921, just over 200 years ago, in Oklahoma, when John Franklin was 6 years old, he and his mother decided to take the train. This was during the time of segregation when black people were not allowed to sit where white people sat, were not allowed to eat where white people ate, and people were not permitted to go to the same bathrooms where white people went. John Hope's mother decided to use the compartment where only white people were allowed to travel in. The conductor of the train asked his mother to move to the segregated compartment, and she refused. The train was stopped, and the conductor told the mother and John Hope Franklin to leave the train. John Hope Franklin started crying, and his mother looked down at him and said this to him, I quote, "You must spend your energy and time, if you have it, to prove to that man and to every other white person that you are as good as they are. And if you do that, you won't be crying, you'll be defying." Quote. So my question to you all today is, are you going to sit and watch what's going on around you in your country? Or are you going to get up, stand up, shoulder to shoulder with the others in solidarity and refuse to accept the status quo? Are you going to take action against poverty? Are you going to stand up and reject racism, not only with your words, but with your peaceful actions? Are you going to acknowledge the mass incarceration of black people, which is a form of new slavery and is unacceptable that we as a developed nation in the Western Hemisphere incarcerate more people than any other developed country? Are you going to help millions of Americans who are denied basic and preventive health care? Are you going to support higher wages? Are you going to press for better pay for teachers? Are you going to advocate for voting rights for everybody, especially for Black communities whose votes are suppressed as I speak with redistricting and gerrymandering, so their voices are not equally represented in the state legislature and in Washington? Are you going to fight for environmental justice and vote to support policies that are going to be good for our climate? Because if we don't, then this planet may not be livable for our future generations. The climate shift is real. The science is real. And it's an existential threat for our survival. So my question is, are you going to do something about it? As I was driving in the rural areas of Georgia last year during the Senate runoff elections in the countryside, I couldn't help but to pull over by a cotton field. I wanted to take some time to reflect on the history, the hardship, the heartache, the blood and sweat of our founding African American mothers and fathers. Historically, we always talk about the founding fathers, which specifically is for white men. But we never talk about the women, the sacrifices they made. And moreover, we also don't appreciate and acknowledge the contributions that were made by Black communities that were enslaved in the South. I couldn't help but remember the essays that I had read in the past on the inhumane and cruel treatment of Black people, the harsh. We must come to terms with the horror and the fear that was unleashed on children without being harassed. They should have been playing in pastures, by the rivers, without any fear or intimidation. We cannot deny the hard truth and compelling evidence of how Black men and women experienced gruesome and extreme punishment simply because of their color of the skin. Slaves' palms, shoulders, or buttocks, or cheeks with branding irons, the letter S. Sometimes the branding was used to mark recaptured runaway slaves to help the local community easily identify them as runaways. Men, women, and children were auctioned in public spaces, cruel and barbaric, with battering and laughter. In many corners of this country, museums and historical mansions, or maybe even some classrooms, the era of slavery is rationalized by saying that there were some good masters and they provided a decent quality of life. Let me be very bold to you. People that treated men, women, and children with so much inhumanity and inflicted so much suffering are not good people. We must realize that the ideology of white supremacy is the root cause of enslavement, and currently is the root cause of what we're seeing today in our divisive and dangerous politics of rising ethno-nationalism targeting Black and brown communities, Black and brown immigrants and refugees, and not only that, communities of other religion, Jewish community, Muslims, Sikhs, they're also are victims of this white supremacy. It's hard to talk about the inhumanity and the violence of slavery and the continuation of racial injustices and actions from our law enforcement to entire justice system against Black and brown people. But we must conquer our fears and not allow our prejudice to keep us from acknowledging and talking about our dark past of racial injustice and slavery leading to current discriminative policies, measures affecting Black and brown people here and abroad. That's the American reckoning. We not only need to have this conversation in our living rooms or in our bedrooms or on social media, but they must be taught by our teachers, professors, in our schools, colleges, and universities. The men and women who stand on pulpits in churches and synagogues and mosques and temples have a moral obligation, more than ever before, to educate their congregants about our painful past and demand their followers to not only pray, but to speak out on injustices for everyone. A sincere acknowledgement, a heartfelt apology, and appreciation for the contributions made by black men, women, and children must be echoed in our elected chambers, in the halls of public offices. The foundation of this republic was built on the shoulders and backbone of our black and brown sisters and brothers, and it must be admitted and conceded. That's the American reckoning. Instead of having an open conversation about our history and the truth about structural racism embedded in our institutions, many of us look away with our veil of complacency and an element of racism that resides in our hearts and our minds. We only talk about the past that consists of feel-good stories, but refuse to engage in or acknowledge the unpleasant real stories of our past. The price of being silent and not taking any tangible steps is detrimental to our growth, prosperity, and unity as a nation, but is inflicting more pain on people who have endured racism and whose ancestors were also so harshly and inhumanely treated. The longer we remain in denial, the longer we prolong the healing of this nation. Undeniable. And the healing will only take place when we unlatch the gates of virtuous accountability of our past and present. That's the American reckoning. Holding these important discussions does not by any means hold anyone accountable as a white person, not at all, for what happened in the past. And neither does anyone from white communities bear any responsibility over racial injustices of the past. None of us do. But now we do have a responsibility to acknowledge the past, and it's incumbent upon all of us to do our best to resist the rising tsunami of white supremacist ideology. Because if we don't, George Santayana said once, and I quote, "Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it." Let me repeat again. Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. In the different corridors of our country, we talk about the "I Have a Dream" speech by Dr. King, or Muhammad Ali refusing to enlist in the draft, or Rosa Parks' role in the Montgomery bus boycott. We love to glorify our iconic leaders and print their quotes in our social media and put Black Lives Matter signs in our yards, but we refuse to honor their sacrifice by genuinely and sincerely taking action and bringing substantial transformation in our country that is much needed now. We cannot reach the mountaintop by just looking at the mountain. We have to get busy climbing the mountain. As I landed at the Portland airport a few days ago, I noticed something that I had not seen when I was attending Kent Sills some 35 years ago. As soon as I walked out of the jetway, I noticed a lady in hijab or headscarf was working as a staff member. As I drove around Portland, I could see many businesses showing Black Lives Matter signs and pride flags. It's welcoming sign for me. I also witnessed the amazing structural changes that had taken place in less than 3 decades. I couldn't recognize Portland because 35 years ago it looked very different. I was very different. It has definitely grown and prospered. I also saw many coffee shops and breweries. As I've been in touch with many people in Maine who are working on different social justice issues, including with refugees and immigrants, I have learned that there's more diversity and integration of immigrants in the state of Maine. Just in Augusta, here, we have over 100 Iraqi refugees settled. The symbolic and transitional change is a welcoming sign, but there's something also very troubling and very disturbing. Portland has one of the highest homeless populations in the state of Maine, thanks to rising cost of housing and corporate realty companies buying homes and developing them that results in more gentrification of the communities, and more people are left with no home or able to afford a decent place to live. The rising poverty has a profound impact on mental health that leads to drug and alcohol abuse. In Augusta, in our neck of the woods, there's also homeless population and a very high percentage of substance abuse. This economic disparity and inequality is unacceptable, and human beings to live in such misery. The world is shifting into an advanced technological era, and more jobs are requiring high-level skills. In the United States, education comes with a high price tag. More and more Americans are finding it difficult to go to college because of affordability. Many who do go to college, do acquire those skills, are left with no choice but to borrow money. In return, it takes them sometimes decades to pay off with interest. Where we are today in terms of systemic racism in America is just not a coincidence, but policies embedded in our institutions, in our hearts, in our minds. The polarization and the divisive political rhetoric we see now in our current politics are symptoms of those policies that we have never seen, never been addressed or acknowledged, and never been eradicated. As I was leaving the cotton field and getting into my car, I glanced at the field one more time, and my heart spoke to me that the sun will rise over Georgia tomorrow, piercing through cotton fields and peach orchards. And with our good work, individually and collectively, we can bring a meaningful change in our communities. After the election in Georgia, the Georgia State Legislature passed a number of voter suppression laws that will clearly target African American votes. In rural Georgia, the vast majority of black and brown communities don't have access to basic health care, and many are living in poverty. The minimum wage in Georgia is $7.25, which is a disgrace since we are one of the most richest nations on earth. And looking at the living costs today, the minimum wage should be around $23 to $24 an hour. You cannot even buy a Big Mac meal for $7.25 now. Over 305,000 African American children are living in families where no parent has full-time year-round employment. Approximately 89,000 Hispanic and Latino children are living in a family with no parent having a full-time employment. These are staggering numbers. The child poverty rate in Georgia is 19%. The number of Asian and Pacific Islander children are below 200% poverty line, which is around 27,000. The number of black children who are living below 200% are about 469,000. The number of Hispanic and Latino children who are living below 200% poverty line are about 224,000. The poverty rate among white communities is 9.1%, compared to black communities, which is 19.1%. Twice. And when you look at Georgia demographics, white people make about 58.62% of population, compared to black people who make about 31.61% population. You can see the racial disparity and economic disparity. This is not only in Georgia, it's in many, many different states. In the South, in the West, in the Midwest. The racial wealth gap and the growth have had a profound impact in terms of transfer of wealth among black communities. This is something really important you need to understand. Wealth is generated and accumulated in one generation and transferred to the next generation. Among African American community, that has been a challenge because historically they were not allowed to keep the wealth. Median white household wealth is about $147,000. Median black household wealth is $4,000. So the pattern continues, and a large percent of black people population are not able to break into American middle class bracket. So if we don't address this and address the truth about inequality and injustice in our past, then we're bound to repeat it. So how and why am I doing this social justice work? Why am I standing here today? Why did I decide to stand up for all our communities, for our country? It was facing monumental challenges, as you can see on the screen, and many more. We're getting behind compared to China and other European countries. For me, it wasn't because somebody had inspired me or because a teacher in my classroom motivated me. There was this awakening in me, within me, when I was about 9 years old. And I held my first small event inviting 6 or 7 of my friends to listen to what I had to say, just like today. My journey is long. It would take me many hours to explain a lot of my experiences, but I'd like to share some of what really motivated me to not remain silent and complicit to injustices and do whatever I can in my power to speak up and stand up for marginalized people and groups that are at high risk. I've been very privileged and blessed to go to an amazing school, Keynote School, and so are you. I've been extremely fortunate to travel across the world and have had meals with families from different cultures and countries. I came across people who spoke different languages and had interesting conversation about religion, politics, and history. Those experiences broadened my mind and allowed me to see the world from a very different perspective. I've been very lucky to also travel all across the United States. And have had very interesting Confederate flags, engaged in very interesting dialogues. I had in Maine, in South Miami, in West Virginia, in Oklahoma. All those interactions shaped me and transformed me into what I am today and what I do today. I come across many difficult experiences and insults and racist remarks, even in this school. I remember arriving in the dorm, I refused to be defeated. But I also found wonderful, amazingly beautiful, loving, caring people here at Kent Hill who looked out for me, invited me to their homes. I stayed at their houses, had Thanksgiving dinners, picked me up from the airport, take me to the mall. I can go through a number of beautiful, heartwarming stories. The good experiences and the feeling is what I remember the most. And those who were less friendly or less kind, I have forgiven them. And I have nothing but love for them. After 9/11, I was approached by FBI. I was profiled because of my religion, of my color, as many Muslims were victims of anti-Muslim hate and bigotry in this country. I've been stopped at the airport and taken into a room to be questioned and then released without any apology. But I refuse to be intimidated, and I refuse to live as a second-class citizen. I live today as a proud brown man who happens to be a Muslim and who also happens to be an American. And my work is for all people, irrespective of their background, color, race, religion, non-religious groups, ethnicity, gender, and sexual orientation. I said to myself a long time ago that I'm not here to see immediate results. And there's a very good chance that I probably will not, but as long as I know that I have done something to help our people and our humanity, then I know that I have done my work. I'm not here to change the world. I'm here to change myself. And that's going to lead me changing people around me and my communities that I interact with. So what is my message to you all? First and most, you have to take care of yourself. You can't help anybody. You cannot take care of anybody. You cannot get involved in social justice if you're not taking care of yourself. In my opinion and my experience, others, including our nation. I urge you to build trust and relationship with people in your communities, in your neighborhoods. People that may not look like you, who may not practice the same faith as you do. They can be of an opposite gender, who may come from a different country or speak a different language or may cook a different meal, including politics. We are a very polarized nation now. We have very little tolerance talking to each other across the aisle hate, divisiveness, and bigotry. Developing connections is absolutely important. Sending a text message or message through Facebook or Instagram or Snapchat or TikTok, and I don't know what else is out there, that's not making a connection. Sure, you're communicating as a means of communication. When you actually sit with somebody and engage in a conversation over a coffee or a cappuccino or a latte or a smoothie, so start building meaningful connections with your family, your relatives, and your neighbors first. Your mission is to convey the message with kindness and truth. You cannot change anybody, you cannot force anybody. But presentation and how you deliver your message means a lot. Strive towards building a more pluralistic and tolerant society. Diversity in our country or in any other country is a sign of strength. As I said earlier, we are a beautiful mosaic of different dreams, hopes, and aspirations. We must open our minds and hearts to engage and interact with all others in a positive, constructive, and civilized approach. We must always stick to the truth. Even if you find yourself standing alone, speak the truth. Never compromise with the truth. If you get tired, do. And if you fail, try again. And if you fail again, try again. Learn to adapt to change and transformation in strategy and methodology in whatever program or project you're working on. Be flexible. I don't expect you to change the whole world because I can't change the whole world. Nobody has been able to change the whole world. I just expect you to help one person in your lifetime. Just one individual, if you can. Because by helping one person, it is as if you have helped the entire humanity. All of you are very fortunate and amazingly blessed to go to this incredibly wonderful, prestigious institution. Believe me when I say this, there are millions of children in this world who love to be in your shoes today. There are children that can never go to school. Children that wake up in the morning and don't have running water to brush their teeth. Their children don't have access to clean drinking water. Children have to get up and go to work. There was a journalist in Pakistan, he was interviewing these kids who would be cleaning cars' windshield in the morning. And the passenger driver would give a tip or something. So the journalist interviewed some of these kids and asked them, what do you want to do in your life? What do you want? What do you like to do? And their answer was, we'd like to go to school. You know why they said that? Because every time the car they were cleaning the windshield, they'll see these kids sitting in the car with the father or mother was taking them to school. And they were heartbroken and crushed that they didn't have that opportunity like those kids. The learning process doesn't stop here at the school, will not stop at the college or university. It's lifetime. So be receptive and open of learning from adults, children. And as long as you are receptive to that, you will learn in the most unexpected places. As you will go into your respective fields, I implore you to also look and to challenge the things that I've addressed today. Remember, nothing can change unless you are willing to make the change. Please try not to be politically correct anymore, because look where it has brought us. Please vote, but don't walk away from holding that person accountable that you voted for, accountable for the policies that person's going to vote for. Please don't think of running for office if you haven't rolled up your sleeves to serve your community on the ground, not on the Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok, by really engaging and volunteering for organizations and groups that are helping your communities, people that are at risk, people that are marginalized, people that are homeless. Please don't fall for political slogans and party politics, because you will end up compromising intellectual integrity and independent voice you carry. Please speak the truth and never settle to find common ground, because truth only means truth. Please speak up for all people who are subject to marginalization and oppression, whether it's economic, social, or physical. Please make sure you understand the difference between a just cause and just a cause. Please make sure that just because it's supported by masses doesn't mean it isn't accurate in a realm of justice and peace. Please know that your voice is powerful and you are capable of making a significant impact if you stay on course and truly want to help all people of your community and your country. Please remember that it's your actions and deeds that will echo farther than your words and your social media post. Please never ever give up if you want to ameliorate the condition of people, and always believe that you can make a difference, because I know you can. We all can. Officials directly impact your local community and policies and laws and rules and regulations. Elect ethical and morally conscious officials leading to better policy that are going to have a direct impact on marginalized and at-risk communities. You're not obligated to run for public office, but you can always do something else. You can volunteer for a group, an organization. You can have a startup organization. You can make donations if you're financially able to. You can support a cause by doing a number of things. Each of you possess a unique gift. And you can use that to your advantage to help somebody out, a group, organization. So again, I say this again and again, that nothing will change until you realize that you have the power to make a difference in somebody's life by, again, running for office, by protesting peacefully, by marching peacefully, by holding press conferences, by writing to the media, by reaching out to somebody that you know that is part and form the community that has been affected terribly. You can do a lot. There are a lot of challenges waiting for you in this country and abroad. If you're from overseas, I'm sure you also have similar challenges. You may not have the luxury and to exercise the constitutional rights that we have today that are enshrined in our Constitution. So you can volunteer. You can help orphans, widows. When I was in Azerbaijan, there were a lot of orphans. A lot of families were displaced after the Soviet Union collapsed. There was so much opportunity to help. So the struggle to overcome life, social and political challenges is constant. The journey of struggle to discover your inner self, to be authentic and to be honest with yourself and to love and care for yourself is the most important of all struggles. And I keep emphasizing on this because I realized this after many, many decades. I live with trauma, childhood trauma. And it showed in my anxiety and my panic attacks. And I had lacked confidence, and I lacked self-esteem. And I made a lot of mistakes. But I took those mistakes as a stepping stone to my journey of success. And I realized in the end that nothing is more important than taking care of yourself, loving yourself. You can't take care of anybody or love anybody unless and until you really care about yourself and love yourself. Be gentle to yourself. Be gentle with your thoughts. Be very mindful of what you think about yourself. Thoughts are very powerful. They can rule you and dictate you how you live your life. Learn to forgive yourself and others. And decisions we learn, transform, and grow from it. There's always. Be the best version of you and don't let anyone take that away from you. Be proud of who you are. Believe in your abilities. Be compassionate, kind to yourself. Peace and happiness have always existed in you. But the struggle to arrive there may not be difficult. It may be tough, like in my experience and many other people that I have come across. Because a lot of us have been told to do this and do that. So we drift away from our purpose of who we really are. Struggle is hard and frustrating at times. It looks and feels impossible to conquer the obstacles you are facing. The journey of struggle and hardship will eventually change you if you just hang in there and every day keep reminding yourself of all the beauty and the greatness you possess in you. Struggle can bring you down and push you to the abyss of defeat. But don't give up. Don't give up. Don't give up. And know that it's only going to make you strong and powerful. Stay patient with your struggles. And realize that as difficult as it was to go through the process of adversity, it was preparing you to tap into the best of what you deserve. And I am a prime example to you. Please know that you are worthy of love and respect and kindness, as I said earlier. You're beautiful in every aspect of your life, and you deserve nothing but what is best for you. Seek the path you envision by staying focused on it, and it shall be revealed to you sooner or later. Why I say this to you about taking care of yourself and being kind and being loving to yourself, because if you are not doing that, you can't do this. Our country has gone through centuries of oppression. We are a traumatized nation, but I believe that can change. And change starts with us, you and me, and everybody else in this room. It's not going to happen by itself. There is no miracle. You are the miracle. Anne Lamont said once, and I quote, "Lighthouses don't go running all over an island looking for boats to save. They just stand there shining." So I ask you to leave this world a better place. Not a whole lot, just enough to make a little dent. Leave a small imprint of your humanity on this planet. Know that you are the lighthouse that can bring light of hope into one of the most darkest places. Know that you are not a melting pot, as I said earlier, but again, a beautiful mosaic of dreams, aspirations, and hopes. Come together and serve your communities with love and empathy and compassion. So today, on this amazing day, we honor the legacy of Martin Luther King with the hope that the next generation, your generation, will see humanity and kindness for cruelty and choose love and peace over hate. There's nothing more powerful, as I said earlier, beginning of this event. Nothing. I know it's going to change hearts and minds of few, and that's good enough for me. So as I stand before you today, I urge you and I implore you to stand up for our country, because our nation, and perhaps nations from other countries people are from, I believe that 37 students from 37 different countries, to change this. I'm not saying not to live your life. Live your life as you please. Jobs, work, getting married, house, vacation, that's all. But nothing is going to change if nobody shows up, if it stays vacant. The lives of people that are being affected, it's not going to change unless you reach out to them, unless you stand shoulder to shoulder, put your prejudice and biases away, put them aside, and say, you know what, I'm going to help you. I'm going to do something. Shake things up. Be mindful that you need to do everything peacefully. Be civil. There are times you may get angry. Resentment may grow. Anger may develop. Take a step back. Breathe. Stay engaged. Stay connected. Just one person I ask you. So as you go back to your dorm rooms, I ask you tonight to take a moment to look at yourself and ask yourself, look at yourself and remind yourself that you are a beautiful human being. Your spirit is unique. You're gifted. Believe in your abilities and believe that you can and will make a difference in somebody's life. And I hope that you do. Thank you.
So we are running close to the start of our first set of workshops, and so I just wanted to go through some of the housekeeping of the day. But I can't stand here next to Mr. Khan and not thank you again for that amazing speech. Thank you so much. So Mr. Khan has given us the pleasure of being with us the entire day, and so we have a session that will be with him starting at 10:15 in the Bodmin. And so I'm going to ask that you all go to the sessions that you have signed up for, were assigned. If you don't know the location of that session, please check with your advisor. All of your facilitators will be taking attendance. Again, this is not a day off, it is an alternative class day. And then I will be picking up those attendance sheets, and we will be tracking that in the same way that we do that for classes. And so we have a little bit of time to